Hello, and welcome to Drop the Act, Episode 4, a podcast brought to you by Performing Perfectly. Now, before we start, I have a riddle for you. What do you get if you cross two musical theatre performers, a kitchen stove, and a desire to smell a bit better? Keep listening to find out. Welcome back. Now, before we meet today's guests, I just want to give a big shout out to the composer of the Drop the Act jingle, and that's musical theatre director, supervisor, conductor and composer Alfonso Casado. And it seems apt to mention Alfonso today because our two guests are also from the world of musical theatre. Now, throughout this podcast, you will have heard me talk about the power of storytelling. You will also have heard me mention the phrase that real change happens at a feeling level. And here at Performing Perfectly, we run many courses which are designed to look at storytelling and look at how it can enhance your sales pitch, your presentations, your keynote speeches, and how it can be a really effective tool within your communication. Now, today, we have a fantastic story. And I began the podcast by asking you a little riddle. What do you get if you cross two musical theatre performers, a kitchen stove, and a desire to smell better? Well, the answer is one of the current best sellers and most popular brands on the natural deodorant market. And it all began in the kitchen of two musical theatre performers, Andy Coxon and Ed Currie. Now, when I spoke to them last year, they were at the early stages of their journey, and things have grown even more since then. In fact, as this podcast goes out, they have just launched in Bloomingdale's and Credo across the US. They won an Oprah Beauty Award for Best Deodorant, and Beyonce and Taylor Swift's dancers are wearing it and loving it. But you know what? I'm going to let them tell you more about it. So, without further ado, let's drop the act with Act, the deodorant. That's A-K-T. Oh, and as always, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, and keep tuning in. So, Andy, we met many years back at Les Miserables, and Ed, I'm sure we've seen each other across an audition table from time to time. And if I was to talk about Andy's theatre credits, I'd say Tony in West Side Story, Berger in Hair, Marius in Les Miserables, as well as the Carole King Musical, Beautiful, and Ed, Annie Get Your Gun, UK Tour, Hairspray, A Chorus Line, Radio Times, and Beautiful as well, which is where you met Andy, I believe. But that's only really, I was going to say half the story, but it's not really a quarter of the story now. There seems to have been a completely new chapter built thanks to this. Which I'm holding up for those who are listening. I'm holding up the Act deodorant. That's a brand new one, and just to prove I'm working with another one as well. So I've got the orange one there and the trusty key. So just take us back to how this all started. Andy, let's start with you. You know, how did this come about? 1 minute you're performing, playing Marius in the West End, and the next minute you're moving into business.
Yeah, well, Ed and I used to live together when we met in Beautiful, and it was there we were just fed up of deodorants not working. Genuinely, nothing was holding up to 8 shows a week, same costumes, hot lights every night. And we didn't try to make a business. We just purely thought, if they can put a man on the moon, we can figure out how to make a deodorant that actually works for us. So Ed, with his brain, started buying in lots of ingredients and genuinely just making formulations on the hob. Not to make a business, like I say, just through curiosity. Ed's probably going to tell this better from where you found this recipe online.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ed, where it sounds like, for me to imagine the detail and the science that needs to go into this, and 1 minute you're on stage in Beautiful and then you're cooking a deodorant over the hob. How does that happen?
It was just sort of curiosity, I suppose. I had this problem that I'm quite naturally very smelly, and a lot of my t-shirts were getting stained from antiperspirant. You know, that horrible claggy stain that you just can't wash out. So I'd stick a t-shirt on, and 5 minutes later I'd smell of body odor, and I was like, well, it's not me, it's my clothes that are smelling, and just nothing else was working. I tried natural deodorants, which sucked. I tried the extra strength stuff, which like burnt my armpits. So I found this very simple recipe online on this sort of hippie mum's blog, gave it a go, 3 ingredients at the time, and got a massive rash and like pustules. But I didn't smell as much as I normally do. And it just sort of piqued this curiosity in me. So it then became a hobby. Every week, I'd create a new formulation, give it a test, and write down my findings. And then I'd be like, okay, well, how can I make this more solid? Because at one point it was very liquidy. So I'd be like, oh, bit of research online. Balms do that. So I bought some waxes in to create a balm. And I tried different powders and varying levels of ingredients. And this was, it took 3 years. So how many, if I made one every week, how many formulations is that? That's like over, 150 or so formulations. And eventually, I started handing it out to my friends. We did a homemade Christmas one year at home. So I gave them all deodorant and they were like, this is amazing. And then we started handing it out to friends in the theatre and people started to want to buy the deodorant from us. So I guess we were becoming more famous for deodorant in the West End than we were for performing, which is a little bit sad, maybe.
I'm trying to remember where, because I'm sure I remember you bringing it into Les Mis, Andy, so maybe I was associate director at the time. I can't remember what year. So what year did you start this? Because I know COVID was a real catalyst for you, but when did this start originally, did you say?
It was
2000. And so 2016 is when I started making the deodorant in the kitchen. And then 2018, we decided let's make a business, still making different formulations. And so we did a Kickstarter at the end of 2018 because we were like, let's give this a go, see if we can make it work. So we did a Kickstarter, and that's probably when you got the deodorant because we handed out a tiny sample to every single person that was in a West End production at the time. And obviously everybody went nuts. The Kickstarter did incredibly well. We had like 3,000 orders by the end of it. And we were like, oh crap, we can't make this in the kitchen anymore. So we need to find a factory. So that was kind of the big approval, I suppose, that this could work.
Sorry, Andy, carry on.
I think a key moment was Ed had stopped performing and wasn't quite sure of what he wanted to do. And we were living together and I was still performing, but I was watching Ed sort of try and find a new love. And he was, what were you? You were a Deliveroo driver at one point. You were trying to test the waters on if you liked interior design, but he had sat on this formulation for so long before actually making it a business. And I turned around and said, I will photograph it. We'll brand it together and we'll try and launch it. Let's use the West End, give everyone a sample. And that's how that sort of became a project. It was never meant to be how big it has become. It was always meant to be a little like sideline and, we'll sell it on Etsy and we'll make £200 a week to try and make our rent at least. And it's just, I think genuinely because of COVID, we were able to focus fully. Obviously we lost our jobs and we went, right, now we'll do it fully like a full business. So we've just had to learn how to make a business.
And what were your points of reference for that? Because, I said in the introduction, the success that this deodorant is currently having from the most awards in the UK for deodorant, for 6 awards in America since you've launched. You launched in the UK, you hit New York Broadway. I just was watching your Instagram earlier and you said, what's the next step? Hollywood. And suddenly there you are, in LA selling this and winning awards and having Beyonce's backing dancers saying this is great, for all of the top fashion magazines all saying this is wonderful. It must, to look at the growth from 2016 to here now, it must sort of be mind-blowing for you. What were your references? Who were your influences? Where did you go to think, how do we make this happen?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think we've always had this sort of mentality that if other people are doing it, why can't we? And you watch Dragon's Den and sometimes you're like, oh my God, like that person is a moron, but they have a successful business. And actually, I suppose my sister was a big influence in that. She has her own business in telehealth called Mabel Therapy. And I saw that she was, in this startup world. I was like, I kind of fancy this. I kind of enjoy what she's doing. And obviously, if she can do it, so can I. So I never really thought, oh, I don't have experience in business, I can't do this. Because I looked around and that's kind of the founding story of most businesses, is that nobody's ever run a business before. You just need to learn how to do it. So I started reading books and looking at webinars and doing online courses and stuff. And we've always said, if you lean forward, your legs will follow to stop you from falling over.
Which is a great saying. And obviously I've read a few articles as well, and your turnover seems to be extremely good. So for people looking at business models, you seem to be mastering it very well. Just for people who are listening, sort of how many people, bearing in mind there was just the two of you in the kitchen, how many people are you now employing? How many people do you have involved in ACT?
We that's what it's all about. I think we're at a team of 14 now, and that's made up of about 8 or 9 full-time and another 5 or so part-time. So it's quite scary that, we've got to pay the payroll at the end of each month.
Yeah.
Sure that they can all pay their rent and their mortgages. I still don't have a mortgage yet.
We can probably announce now, because it's going to be completing next week, that we've just taken in a very large amount of investment to take us to the next level of the company, which allows us to hire in more people and more territories, more products, and really just grow more.
Fantastic. That's great news. I mean, by the time this comes out, I'd be thrilled to see, how far you've come. So what I love about sort of the link with your products and what we do is, obviously even with the title of ACT, and even with the way you are pitching this, talking about where it came from, how you've started it off in the West End in New York, but all the references to being in rehearsal and then getting it ready for the main stage. It's obviously has that connection to the performing arts industry and to your roots. We look at Performing Perfectly with how you communicate, and how you're now communicating on a very large stage, and to get investors as you have done. What do you think you've taken from the world of performance, and how has that helped you as communicators when you're stepping into this new world for you to be able to sort of get these results?
I always say it when we're at conferences or in award ceremonies and industry events, we really notice how we're able to speak to anybody. That's just an innate skill we have as performers. You're able to just converse and put people at ease because you don't mind speaking to strangers. And it's a skill set that I think we take for granted as performers. So when we do meet those muggles, as we call them, still the people that aren't on stage, we hire a lot of muggles. You see that skill set that's not there. It's not a bad thing, but we benefit from having been on stage and being able to, I don't know, almost, you see people's, where was I? Industry.Beauty Awards last week, and I noticed a group of people just listening to me talking. I was like, I'm literally just talking as me. But no one else was able to sort of command that small circle of people because, I don't know, we just have this performance element without realizing it. When you get into the normal world, it's my biggest notice anyway.
I think people in theatre, they don't value how skilled they are and how magical they are. And I think it's quite funny that we call non-theatre people muggles, because theatre people really are magic. The way that they're able to just stand up in front of a room of people, and it's not terrifying, but for normal people, it's a really scary thing to do. And I think actually since being in business, we hire quite a lot of theatre people because we really like those skills and we value those skills. They're great leaders. If you think of somebody that's a director or has ever put on a show, you're having to coordinate so many different departments, from the choreographer to wardrobe to the set design to lighting design. You're the person that everybody comes to ask the questions like, is this right? Should it be like this? So I think one of our principles as a business is we're trying to give performers. One of our principles, I suppose, as a business is that we're trying to make performers realize how special they are and how their skills as performers are really transferable to business, because I'd much prefer to hire somebody with a performance background than somebody that doesn't.
So for people who are listening to this, and we work with Performing Perfectly, we work in sport, we work a lot with the NHS, We work with business leaders, CEOs all over the country. Obviously, they don't have that. They don't have that skill. If you could, pinpoint specific moments or specific things, what is it that you think people need to trust in themselves that they're capable to do? And not meaning to answer my own question, but Andy, just picking up something you just said, is you said you were just talking freely and you were just talking. I was just being me. But I suppose what we always remind people is that they sometimes forget what they know, and they know a hell of a lot, whether it's, about their business, about their department in the NHS, about, in my case, sometimes standing on stage with Les Mis and needing to talk about Les Mis and going, actually, I know it inside out. But you sometimes have that little brain wobble that tells you, actually, I don't. What if I don't? Would you say that's part of the battle? It's trusting yourself, trusting your knowledge?
Oh, 100%. The more knowledge you have, the more confident you are. Knowledge is power in any scenario. So if you know what you're talking about, you're going to feel confident. You'll probably have seen, you won't have seen because you weren't there, but from this award ceremony I was at to our very first one, to see that switch in how, because we have a success behind us, that confidence is built. So it is experience at the end of the day. But going back to an earlier question of yours around how we were able to become businessmen, when you're an actor or as a performer, you are a business. So you sort of had to learn how to survive and create this entity almost. So we've got these elements where you have to turn it on in a certain style for a certain scenario. And I don't know how that translates to, I don't know how normal people would be able to just turn that on. How do you teach that to somebody other than saying, trust yourself and come into a scenario prepared as much as you can?
I think that's it. I think there's 2 points to this. I think it's about preparation. If you think about any performer, you go through a rehearsal period, you are refining your craft, refining the skill. You would never step on that stage without knowing the dance routine or the steps, or even the backstage choreography. Where's my costume? Where's my prop at this point? Which exit do I go off? Performers often are thinking ahead, thinking about the problems before they occur. That's a skill I really like. And I think that can be taught. And then the second point to that is humility. In a rehearsal space, allowing yourself to make a mistake, try something out, try something new. You don't know everything. So you need to be able to ask other people information. Like, how do I do this? Was this right? Can I try it again in this way? Muggles, I keep saying muggles, and probably that's not very fair. But I think sometimes they're too scared to ask for help. They think, I'm in a professional environment, that must mean that I have to know something. They're not the kind of people that we want on our team. One of our principles is we're always in rehearsal. So yes, you can fuck up. Of course you can. You can make mistakes at any point, but you got to learn from that. And at the end of the day, when it's showtime, it's time to deliver.
And I think that's important as when you are a leader, when you find yourself in a position like that, it is a mistake to think that you've got all the answers. And going back to your reference of directors, I know certainly in my game that there's no way I'm going to put on a production of Les Mis in Japan later this year without everyone around me that I need. And I'll need to ask questions. I'll need to rely on that important team around me. So it certainly isn't the case that you have all the answers or that you need all the answers yourself. You now have that team around. You've just mentioned, around the number of 14, and it's going to grow. It's going to grow even more by the sounds of it from the investment you've got. What do you think? And you've touched on it there, but what your sort of leadership qualities and what has been your approach to communication with your team to try and get the desired results that you're after?
It's been a learning curve for us because, so this morning I had a brand planner meeting with the whole marketing team to basically talk through what I want us to do for the next 12 months. How the hell do I ever even know how to do that? I've just learnt. And my main focus is to speak to them about what they need. So it's a lot. I put a lot of it in their hands to really, how is it going for you? What do you need from me to get to this point that I want you to get to? I've had to learn that. There's a few moments I think in the past where Ed and I have probably said the wrong thing, or we've said something that someone else has heard because people talk and it's gone the wrong way. I think that's life. That's certainly theatre. Literally, exactly. I think we're able to navigate those, but I think you have to have that awareness and just creating a safe space. Like a rehearsal room, we want our team to be able to say what they want to say. No idea is shit. No idea will be discarded. It might not be right, but we have to be able to give them confidence. We want them to grow with the team. If they don't, then, it's very clear that they'll sort of burn out from the team. So we like to give them the platform that they need. And if we have to, we'll take them away and speak about what we want to happen. But I think the team kind of love us because we're banter. The team are all fun. We are very fun bosses, but we can be strict when we need to be. They know we're onto something very good. So if they aren't up to scratch, the team is small. It's lean for how much we're doing. They know they're going to get left behind. So they're, to keep their daily job buoyant and happy, they have to keep up. And if you're not a doer, it's very apparent.
Sure.
If I think back to the rehearsal rooms that I really enjoyed as an actor, it was the directors and the producers that gave autonomy to the cast that helped create the show. There was nothing worse than being told to stand on that number, look in that light, and say the line like this. It just drains you of any sort of joy. And so I think I've learned from that. I want to make sure that we're working really collaboratively as a team, that people have got the autonomy to go away and make the decisions. I don't want to be making every decision. I've got so much to do. I just looked at my inbox today and I've got 200 emails. I'm like, oh my God. So it's much better when somebody sees the problem, comes to me and says, I think this is what we're going to do. And I can just, put a tick on Slack. Don't even have to say yes. And just go for it. And I think people really respect that. They want to be contributing to something good. As soon as you micromanage and tell people how to do things, they just aren't going to stick around and they're going to hate the jobs.
I think, you just touched on something there about that freedom and that ability to create and be creative and giving people that power to be able to do that. And I think that's really great and important leadership. And it sort of takes it back to Les Mis, Andy, in a way. And it was always my worry when I was putting a cast into London of saying, I never wanted them to come in feeling like they are the 30th cast of Les Mis and going, okay, so you're just going to do what the person before you did. So to actually, even though I knew what it needed to be because the powers that be above me are saying this is how it goes, I hope that I always find a way of giving people the freedom to feel like they have a say, that they can be creative, and so that they can have their own input rather than it being dictated to them. And it seems like that's something, Ed, certainly what you're saying, you've sort of taken from the theatre world into your world of business.
Definitely.
What about, when we talk about communicating with your team, and when we of course break it down with performing perfectly down to the strands of body language, of your voice, of your words, and the power of the language and the power of the words you use, and you've touched on already about preparation, being prepared and stepping into the space. Is that something you feel as well, Andy, you touched on it anyway, that comes naturally to you, or do you have to think about, okay, well, this is what we want to achieve today, we want to achieve this, whether it's from your staff or whether it's from your potential investors or whether it's from a magazine, actually sort of which version of myself do I need to be here, how do I pitch this, and how, I suppose, does your performance work from the past come into that in each different scenario? Andy, shall I start with you?
Yeah, I think every scenario requires a different version of you, even though it stems from the real you. Otherwise, authenticity, if something's lacking authenticity, it stinks of fake. And it just is so clear that you're not being honest. And I think that's something Ed and I have had from day dot. Every investor we've ever met, every person we've ever met along the way has just been so at ease with us because we are confident and we're ourselves. There are scenarios where we obviously have to rein it in slightly. We can't be as goofy and banter as we like to be on some scenarios, but you get to that point, if it is a really important pitch or it is an important investor meeting, you do have to go into business mode, but we still like to sprinkle it with a little bit of Ed and Andy. Otherwise, where's the differentiation? We are faces of our brand, so we have to be a lot more theatrical, if you like. I think that answers your question. It's being real. Does that answer your question?
No, completely. I mean, authenticity is the most important thing, and I think we find sometimes when we go in and start talking about theatre and performance, people say, "Oh, you want us to be fake? You want us to be something?" No, we don't want you to be fake. We just want to find the version of you that you need in that moment. And I just wondered how much do you find? It sounds like it's something that comes naturally to you both, but do you ever find yourself sitting down, Ed, and going, "Okay, this is important. We need to go in, and this is how we need to be in this environment"? Or do you find that it's something that comes in the space, in the situation when you're faced with the people opposite you?
I think the latter. I think we're pretty good judges of character. We're good at judging the sort of dynamic of a meeting room. I know that certainly the meetings that I enjoy are when there is some rapport with the other person. I never want to feel like I'm going into a meeting pretending to be the CEO of a company, because that's just not me. I don't really know what a CEO is, if I'm honest. But I think that's why our team responds so well to us as well. We're not pretending to be the owners of a business. Yes, we are the owners of a business, but we're also Ed and Andy, and we're normal people. And I would expect that of any of our team moving forward. If they're in a sort of leadership role, they start going into meetings with the rest of their team or as a manager and playing manager. And you do see this quite a lot in corporate scenarios. People pretend they think it's professional to be a bit of a dick, to be a bulldozer, to be hard. But actually, people will just respond much better to you if you're normal. Like, get rid of the hierarchy. Don't put yourself on a pedestal. Don't put other people on a pedestal, because then you start to, "Oh, yes, no, sir, yes, sir." You start to change who you are. And I don't think people respond to that. Humans are very good at detecting authenticity. And when it's not there, it feels weird.
It's the difference of when you put a camera in front of someone's face and they go from speaking normally to suddenly speaking like I'm in front of a camera, and they put a voice on.
To be fair, I do that.
I
just had one of those moments go, "Am I doing that now? Is that what I'm doing?"
You're not at all. But Ed does do it sometimes when we do content, and I have to just say, "Just talk like Ed," and we go, "Oh yes," it finds the rhythm again, because you do, especially as performers, you suddenly see that switch on. It's being you. And I think instead of saying perform, it's like be confident with it and trust yourself is the inner feeling.
There's two things I just want to pick up on based on what you said. I'll probably forget the first one, because I'm going to start with you just said that about putting a camera in your face, and you talked about content. And so obviously, I don't know, I mean, 2016 feels, not that long ago, but social media has changed so much since then. And even for me with our company and thinking, "Oh, we're being told you need, you're the faces, they need to see you, put a camera in." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not sure I can do it." With the brand, how much time have you spent sort of thinking about, okay, how do we present ourselves? Is it everything you said before about we just need to be ourselves? But you're trying to put across this, this such an important message of sustainability, the ethical practices that and everything that this deodorant represents, and there aren't. I mean, I know about it first and foremost because I know you, but I don't see it in many places. I don't see anyone having the impact and the success that you are having with something like this. And it's not something that would have been on my radar if it wasn't for you. Although I care about the planet, I'm so used to spraying something under my armpit and going, "Oh, so suddenly to be doing this, it takes a new way of thinking. You have to think, okay, what can I do to help? Everyone wants to do their bit. How do you communicate that? How do you get that message across? How does that get into your social media?" That's a lot of questions all at once, but I don't know whether you could summarize that waffle from me.
Well, I'll start it off. It's really interesting that you say that about the sustainability, and how actually you probably, although you care about the planet, this probably wouldn't be on your radar if it wasn't for us. And we actually did a piece of work. We went out to our customers and we tried to understand what was the main reason, what was the buying intent, like why did you purchase Act above any other deodorant? And the number one thing that came back was the story. It was us. We're great. People just really responded to the fact that it was two guys from a completely different world. There was a reason that it was made, and that's why we brought it to market. And sustainability was pretty low down on why people purchased it. So although for us, Act, that's sort of like a foundation, sustainability, and we'll always try and innovate and always try and move forward with that. It's not the main reason why people are buying. It's storytelling.
That's really interesting. That whole idea of storytelling, of being human, of having that with your product and the effect it can have. I know a story about somebody who bought a load of cheap little things off eBay, spent about, I think it was in America, spent about $1 on all of them, and then gave them to writers and poets and said, could you just write something about this? And then resold them with the poem attached or the story attached. And they went for sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 times the amount of money, just because they could then relate a story to that. So I think that's really important.
Storytelling's a huge part of it. We have so many USPs as a brand that we had to really figure out what are we actually going to lean on and speak about. I think when we first launched the samples to the West End, we were a completely different brand and we didn't have any of our story involved. We were called PIT, P-I-T-T. We had nothing to do with theatre. It was all about the product. The phrase was more than a deodorant, and that was it. The best thing that could have happened was someone told us they trademarked the name, so they had to rebrand. So then plugging in the story was the best thing we could have done, sprinkling in that bit of theatre. But on top of that, we're plastic free, we're natural, we're vegan, we're fully recyclable. It actually works. Beyonce and Taylor Swift dancers wear it. But we've got so many messages to say and use. How do we bucket that up? So it's been a big piece on my side as kind of leading on the brand and the marketing side of stuff, is to how to split it out and into these pillars, what to lean on, to test adverts with what works better, with Ed and Andy talking or with the product on its own. And the main answer to this question is that everything worked in some capacity, as communicating every element of that. But it was, again, drawn from authenticity, because most brands that don't have a story have tried to fabricate one to put on top of their already established brand. And you can smell the fakeness from the beginning.
That's interesting. Just jumping back to your journey and talking, when you were speaking earlier, you were talking about being a performer, and so naturally you felt you could go into that room and you could deliver, you could talk, you could communicate, and that sort of came as second nature to you. We all know, I'm sure, performers who've really struggled with anxiety and stepping foot on stage to do the job that they A, love, and B, are good at, and having those doubts about whether they're capable. And sometimes that comes from being out of work for a while, or sometimes it comes from a reason you just can't comprehend or even know. To me, suddenly it's all right saying, yeah, we stepped in, we performed, we felt we could do it, but you're suddenly finding yourself in a world that's completely new to you. But were there ever those moments of, I don't want to say doubt, but I mean that sort of imposter syndrome of going, should we be here, or how do we do this, or did that kick in at all?
Yes,
100%. I mean, to Andy's point, like the fact that our first brand had nothing to do with us in there at all, or our theatre, we were so scared that people wouldn't take us seriously as two people from musical theatre trying to make a deodorant. And then we've kind of learned our magic as we've gone along. The fact that people really engage with us, that we can speak up in a room, that people are really enamored by our story and our background. And so that confidence is definitely built. And I think actually one of the best things is being introduced to the corporate world and just kind of seeing how everyone's lagging it a bit. Like nobody's that clever, nobody's that smart. Everybody's learned along the way. Everybody started from nothing and they've just had to learn the skills. And that's what we do. We're very We've got a lot of humility, I suppose, as founders of a business, that we're very eager to learn from different people. And eventually you kind of exhaust your learning from a certain individual or a mentor, and then you need to move on to bigger things. So it's just taking it step by step, always moving forward, leaning forward, your legs will fall out.
It's worth noting as well. I was one of those performers that before going on stage would literally want to vomit. Like, I knew my stuff, but the fear just like overwhelms you. That, especially towards the end of my career, just before COVID, I was really like, oh, it was too much. We used to have meetings before we'd go into investor meetings to prepare, so that we knew what we were going to do. We'd go through our pitch deck together just to make sure we had the story. You do that slide, I'll do that slide. So we were always rehearsing before going in. But now, because we've done that so much, it's like when you do Les Mis 8 shows a week, by the time you're in it 3 months, it's literally, you can do your shopping list while singing. It becomes second nature. We had a pitch yesterday with Harvey Nichols, and we didn't even have to speak before it, because we just knew, I'll start the story, Ed will take over on formulation, then we'll go through the questions they have, and it just flows. So it's practice, preparation, and just getting used to doing it. But there's still moments where we go, oh my God, we're about to speak to such and such from Vogue. Let's have a little moment together, but be prepared.
And are you finding now that you're stepping into rooms where, I mean, obviously everyone, you know why you're there and they know why you're there, but your brand is sort of talking for itself now? Is there enough hype around it now that you're stepping in the room and you are the guys who created ACT?
It's a bit funny.
We're in Glossier in LA, and one guy went, "Why do I know you?" Yeah, this is in LA. I was like, "I don't know." He said, I've seen you with your top off, because I'm on the adverts doing.
Oh, of course.
He's like, the adverts get a lot of attention, and people, they might not recognize us immediately, but as soon as we say we're from ACT, they're like, "Oh my God, you're the deodorant guys. Yes, we love it." So yeah.
It was on our first time on the subway together in New York. We literally just landed, got on the subway to get to Times Square because it was Halloween. We were like, let's have a look. Sat down opposite this guy, and his eyes just widened. Was like, "Oh my God, you're the founders of ACT." And we were like, "What? We've only just launched here. Like, how do you know it?" That's quite surreal. But then, in terms of like going into buyers meetings and stuff, yeah, it's pretty cool now that we can go into an initial meeting. They know the brand already, and they're just like, "Yes, yeah, we already know that we want to take you on." So that's pretty cool. There's no longer that hard slug of trying to sell it and tell them, please.
Do you remember the moment where you went, "This is really working," or "This is going to be big," or was there a point where you just went, this is our futures"?
It was quite. I think it was quite recently, probably within the last 10 months ish, maybe a bit longer. We have one of our early investors is now our chairman, and he came in and was like, "Let me look at your data a little bit." And he said, "If you tweak these numbers, this will happen." We've been terrified to spend money since the beginning. We're very conservative on that. And he went, "Just plug this money in and you'll see this, do this on your like ad spend or whatever." We're like, "Okay, let's just do it." We did it, and it did that. So you started seeing the motions of having expertise coming in from the outside world that knew it. We then learned that information. That was about 2 years ago we started doing that. But seeing it now constantly working and just seeing the uplift, I don't think we'll ever take it for granted with just those type of people. But definitely in the last, I'd say 9 months, we've kind of built our future here with this. If this goes to where we aim for it to be, we've got a beast on our hands that hopefully sees us through to the end of time.
God, I didn't put any money in the crowdfunder. I'm just
Chris,
gutted.
Roughy error.
I know. What about sort of communication styles, differences sort of around the world? I mean, I don't say around the world. I don't know how far you've gone apart from UK and America, which are two pretty big giants. But are you finding your approach works everywhere you go? Do you have to adjust because it's a different audience, a different culture? How's that come into play?
It's quite funny actually. Me and Andy definitely turn into Prince Charles when we're in America. Like I don't know what it is, but they love the Brits. They love we have a different language for things. The fact that we say aluminium, they're bowled over by the differences, and they think that, yeah, we're having tea with the Queen. And that's amazing, actually, like talking to people in the States. I don't know if it's part of their sort of culture of the American dream that you can go from nothing to something, but they're so impressed by what we've achieved and they're really behind us. Sometimes I find in the UK, it's a little bit different. It's a bit like, you know, I go to a party, I say I have a deodorant business, and then they're like, oh, right, what's the USPs of this company? Like, try and sell it to me. In America, it's not that at all. It's just like, oh my God, wow, this is really incredible. So they're definitely different cultural differences.
Been an easier sell in the US. I don't think we expected, we definitely didn't know it would be this successful so quickly over there. And what you'll see, the biggest difference communication-wise in press, over here, they'll say, here's an amazing deodorant that does this. It's founded by these guys from the West End. Over there, it's these West End guys have made this product. It's this, this, and this. So it's sort of flipped on its head. They're much more interested in people and stories over there. Although the story carries it here, it's still very much prove to me it works. There's still like a British up front, if you like. Whereas over there, it's, oh my God, you did this. Say harb again. Say aluminium. Like they want to hear it, and they're so enamored that we never expected that at all.
And did you do the same approach? You know, did you go to sort of Broadway theatres and take it around the cast there? Was that important to do, or was that just, well, we've done it and it's a good tag for us, it's a good story again of how we get in?
I was the only marketing ploy we had in the beginning. I went out in May for a holiday to New York, and I met up with one of our investors over there and said, let's just go for a beer. He's British, but he was like, guys, you need to be over here. The market for your product is wild. And we were like, okay, fine. I came home absolutely fired up to Ed and Darryl and said, we've got to do it. I can easily set up a contact in every single Broadway show, do exactly what we did with the West End. And then a bit of convincing, and you were like, okay, let's do it. It wasn't going to cost too much because we just set up a warehouse and it was giving product.
But weirdly, every investor had told us, no, don't do it. Don't go to the US. Brands go to the US to die. You'll spend a fuck ton of money and you'll get nowhere. And I think something in us, we were just like, no, this is a good idea. Just the West End and Broadway connection just made sense. And so we ring-fenced it to New York at the beginning. We said, let's just target New York. Let's just go and seed the product out to everybody on Broadway. We'll just do ads in New York. And then quickly, 60% of revenue was coming from California. We were like, oh, and then more from
we
Texas.
better go there.
And then suddenly we'd sold deodorant in every single state in America. And we were like, right, okay, we need to think much bigger now.
It was the community. Grasping that community over there was the best thing we could have done again, which is what we did here. We've also been doing a lot of behind the scenes gifting to makeup artists and wig people and anyone that's working on movie sets, TV sets. That's how it's got into the hands of like Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. Cynthia is obsessed with it because of the Wicked set using it. So that's all come from us just knowing people. We've not spent money on doing it. So investors didn't quite realize that.
Today, we even got a message that the makeup artist has been using it on Leonardo DiCaprio under his wig, and he's obsessed with the product. So it's pretty cool. Rosamund Pike as well. It was used on the Saltburn movie set. So it's pretty cool for the creative industries.
Yeah, when you hear names like that, and that's the you can give me a lesson, because it's not just for the armpit, is it? This you know, it's wherever you want it is sort of how it's pitched.
That's what we didn't realize. In America, whole body deodorant is a huge trend. Weird, we were like, it already is, because we just made it like that. Whereas over here, it's starting to become a thing, but over there, they love a whole body deodorant. We found out because a friend of mine who was on a movie set, they were trying to get a real close-up on a movie, and the wig lace was shining. And my friend just went, oh, let's just try putting this balm on. And they got the shot straight away. So to take that shine away under makeup, but it can be used under boob, between you downstairs, on your feet, anywhere. And that's not what we intended to do, but is now a new USP we've found to communicate.
Well, it's going to give me a good couple of hours after we've got off the call. And I was just thinking, when you were saying, you know, you suddenly found out you were getting these sales in, California, Texas, wherever. And you think that it's more from the the story, and rather, do you think any of that is no? There is a problem with our planet here. We've got to be, that doesn't seem like it's the first reason to buy it. People have realized it's a good product first and foremost, and that's a bonus. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. It's efficacy first, performance first. We call ourselves a personal performance company. So that's the number one. And then people are like, oh, it's plastic free. Great. It's something we'll always try and do. Not easy. But yeah, sustainability weirdly is secondary to people just wanting something that bloody works.
Yeah. Well, which makes sense as well. I mean, that is just a bonus. So looking forward, you've just announced new investment and what sounds like very exciting new investment. So how do you plan to evolve sort of the communication strategies of ACT? How can you sort of meet the consumer demands, and how can you make sure that this business keeps going on the trajectory that you want it to? What are the important key things you've got to do as a business to make sure that happens? It's quite a broad question, I know, but
it's quite a clear one for us because we've spent so much time the last few weeks figuring out what to do with this money to do what we need. Ed and I need to hire in the experts now to take it to the next level, to take the stuff away from us that we've, Ed and I, we do very different parts of the company, but we're quite evenly split across every department. So if we can get a couple of those things taken away from us, we can then focus on communicating us and the brand. And we love the content we make, but we can't put all our all into it just yet. And that's the stuff that's getting it out there. So to be able to communicate more from us is the next step. I think getting that team built so that things are automated and we can go to LA to do the next event while everyone's still working on the business, and it's obviously led by us, but they're doing their job and we're not having to be on the phone and on emails all day, every day.
I think personally, that's what we're trying to move to. But as a business, we're expanding our product range. So this summer, we've got new products coming out, again, in the personal care category. We've got a body wash and a body balm coming out. And then loads more products coming out next year as well. What we found is that people are really into the scents that we've created. Like, there's no other deodorant that smells like this. Like, we were so fed up of smelling like teenage boys from what's on the market at the moment. Or, soft lilacs and linens if you're a girl, and war and fire if you're a man. So we've created these unisex fragrances. So we're rolling those out into different products, which is really exciting. And then, of course, we're launching into wholesale as well. So we'll be in retail spaces, particularly over in the US. We're going to be launching in Neiman Marcus, which is a huge department store chain, in Bloomingdale's and Space and K, and Credo Beauty, which is this niche sort of clean beauty chain of stores. And that's really exciting. Obviously, we launched in COVID, like e-commerce and subscriptions was our main focus. And now that we can actually bring those products into a physical space where people can try it and smell it, and that's going to be really exciting to see how that grows.
For a project that started on your hob, how involved are you still in the development of each flavor? Is it you number one?
Oh, yeah, we are the product people. We write the briefs, we create the fragrances, we do the back and forth with the lab to make sure that everything's perfect. Yeah, and he's got bags and bags and boxes full of stuff in his room.
My background's blurred, but I've literally got boxes of things that just get sent to be approved and signed off. And we've got a photo shoot on Friday, so there's new products here for me to shoot, but it all gets signed off in different levels and we brief it in. Obviously, we're not making it on the hob anymore, so it gets done by the scientists, but it's our brief. It's our brain being created.
And where are we now? For 8 years. 8 years this has been since the beginning, which I mean, I don't know whether it feels that long. Does it feel 8 years to you, or does it feel like it's been overnight? I don't know. For me, it feels like it's been a couple of years in the making, but it's obviously been such hard work for you. But what are the? Could you, if you could give anyone listening sort of the perfect takeaway? What have you learned about this process? What guidance would you give to someone else if they were about to set foot, stepping out on an idea, on a seed of a business?
Oh,
Put you on the spot there, Andy. Let's go to you first.
I would, I think I would struggle to do what we've done if the product wasn't good. And I think there's so many companies that are super successful, and I don't know how when their products aren't good. I really don't understand how that's happened. That is like marketing expertise. So I would say, if you believe in what you've got and it is good, put yourself and the authenticity into it, and it's going to flourish. Ed and I have put our heart and soul into this from day one. We've been honest. We've met people. We've asked for help. We've never gone, we know what we're doing. We've got something incredible. I don't need your advice. We've asked for help. We've used that help. We've treated every single day like a school day. I'm personally very grateful for this business during COVID, because obviously we lost everything, but we were able to focus on this. So I think having the humility and the brain to want to learn, you'll be fine. Just please don't release products for the sake of it. I hate that.
Ed, do you have anything to add to that, or has Andy summed it all up?
I mean, that's pretty good advice. I would have said the same. Like, just be willing to learn. Like, you are never going to know something fully, and we still don't. Like, every day we're growing, and then I suppose know when to improve as well. Your product, you might have all the faith in the world in the product, and we did at the beginning, but it wasn't perfect. We've been through numerous different formulations since we've launched, packaging changes. You've always got to improve and create. You'll get the feedback from your customers, and you got to listen to them, even though it pains you to. I just did a project today looking through all of our 1-star reviews to figure out how can we improve further. And, it takes a massive hit to the ego sometimes. But you got to do it.
That's a good point, though. But I remember going on as Valjean once and then going on Twitter afterwards, and it was the worst thing I ever did in my life. How do you manage that? How do you cope with that? I mean, do you have to look at the success and go, well, look, it's more people are loving this than aren't? But
exactly, we've got thousands and thousands of 5-star reviews. Sometimes people just want to complain, and you do get keyboard warriors. Sometimes you see trends and stuff as well. Like, we used to have this leak with the product, and that was trending across a lot of the poor reviews. So, that's something you listen to. If it's just, I don't like this fragrance, it's minging, then you can know, right, okay, well, they don't like it. And that's fine. Not everybody's going to love what you've created.
And I suppose that just as a last little question, your theatrical backgrounds, are they going to be solely used to take this business forward, or will we see either of you on the stage again?
Oh, for me, I don't think I want to appear on stage again. Although we have talked about maybe doing a sort of little cabaret to tour the US to some of the department stores we're launching in. That's fine. But I don't want to do a full-scale production. I don't want to do 8 shows a week anymore. And it's too tiring. I like my life now.
Yeah, something tells me you might not need to. But Andy, what about you? Am I going to hear those dulcet tones again?
I do. I miss it. I miss performing. I don't miss the lifestyle that came with it. We've built ourselves a very nice life doing this. It's a hard life, but it's nicer than it was as a freelance actor. But I do miss performing. I'm never going to say never. I think there's a place for it. I only stopped performing because of COVID, really.
Yeah.
And then this became so big that I just can't let this opportunity pass. I tried to do a show at Sheffield Crucible at the same time as this over Christmas, and it's just so hard. 8 shows a week and running a team is meant to be taking you seriously, and you're like, sorry, I've just got to go on stage with a moustache on. And so not yet. I miss it. I don't know is my answer.
I think ACT kind of gives us a bit of a taste and opportunity. We do a lot of stuff on camera. We go into the studio. Andy's fantastic on set when we do any of our campaign shoots. Like, he is the creative director, and he just knows how to work with the models and the photographer to get the shot. It's really amazing to watch. we get that little taste. And, down the line, I'd love to maybe do some choreography for some of our campaigns and, help with the filming of stuff. So, yeah, we get a taste of it. I'm not missing it.
Well, you're certainly working on the global stage in an effective and exciting way. So congratulations to both of you. If anyone wants to get in touch with you or to learn more about ACT, where should I point them, or where can you point them?
Go to Instagram, AKT_LDN. And you can find our personal Instagrams in there as well. We'll be tagged on the pictures. So just DM us and say hi.
And of course, you can purchase the product at actlondon.com, aktlondon.com.
Holding it up, showing here. It's really wonderful when nice things happen to nice people, and it's certainly the case with you two. So I'm thrilled for you both. Congratulations, and thanks for joining me today. All the best.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.